Yeah, so now we're gonna kind of like pivot slightly, and we're gonna talk about all of the kind of teams that we think will sell, the obvious sellers, and the kind of the borderline teams, and we're just gonna identify at least one, maybe a couple of interesting prospects, or sorry, interesting players that they could sell in exchange for prospects. So just really quick, we'll start in the National League since that's where we just touched on working bottom to top. Marlins, we talked about it already. Jazz Chisholm seems like he's definitely going to get moved. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that he will get moved, and his key is going to be how much value does he have? Because everyone kind of knows Jazz as this, larger than life personality, superstar
They
per
voted him the
se,
most overrated player in the league.
because the stats don't really back up how much hype he gets. He's
Yeah,
good.
for the record, Bryce Harper was nominated the most overrated player in the league several years.
Yeah, so come on.
Or whatever that's
they're
worth,
not.
yeah.
It's not like baseball players watch every game like we do, anyways.
Right,
So
exactly.
yeah. So yeah, it's just gonna depend on what value teams perceive him as having. I think he is a perfect change of scenery guy, and I think there's a couple guys on the Marlins that are like that.
Yep.
So I feel like if a team says we think he'll be better here, that they might, fork over a big prospect for him. So definitely a guy to watch out for here at this deadline.
Yeah. I think he's gone. There's been a lot of rumors with him to the Yankees in particular.
That would
Because
be
he can
wild.
play Yeah, he can play second. He can obviously play outfield, which is what he's, primarily been playing. So I think he's gone. And then the other player who was an all star and honestly has been really good is Tanner Scott. He's gone. He's
Yeah,
100% gone.
100. Yeah, no, I'm with you
He's going to be a great pickup for a contending team.
for sure.
All right, next team, the Rockies. This one's tough because it's like they don't have that one. Okay, teams are going to want this piece because Tovar, McMahon, they're under contract for a while, so I don't think they're going to be super selly, and they're that team that makes no sense with how they operate.
Yeah.
They should have sold last year, didn't. Yeah, they make no sense, or wasn't. Whenever the Trevor Story year was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But
And then they
should
of
have
course
traded him.
signed Bryant
And
weirdly.
yeah, and then they let Story go for nothing. Yeah, it was very bizarre. So yeah, anyone on the Rockies that really interests you?
Besides Cal Quantrill, not really. But
Yeah.
he's definitely a guy. He'll get moved. He's had a pretty good
He's been
year.
moved, yeah. Especially
And
considering Coors.
yeah, definitely. So he'll be a good depth pickup for a squad, like a number 4 type guy on a playoff rotation.
Yeah, maybe like the Diamondbacks.
Could be.
I could see that. I could see that.
Interdivision, but then again, the Rockies don't really care. Nobody cares about the Rockies in terms
Yeah,
of
this is true.
rivalry.
No. They have to be good in order to be rivals.
Yeah.
All right, next team is the Nats. Kind of already alluded to it. Bias aside, just being objective, the Nats have several pieces that I think are going to be very attractive to contending teams. They've already traded Hunter Harvey, who's a very attractive piece. Obviously, the Royals scooped him up. Kyle Finnegan just recorded 3 saves in a single series
boosting
and
that value.
looked really good doing it. It wasn't
He looks
stressful
fresh
at all.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the thing.
The
They needed
All-Star
that
break.
deadline, or they needed the break.
Yeah, the All-Star break helped him a lot. He has a year and a half control, but so did Hunter Harvey. So if the offer's right, they'll move him. Jesse Winker, just a complete bounce back campaign. They would be dumb not to move him. Dylan Floro has been super solid. Not doesn't have 8th or ninth inning work this year, but certainly could do that if a team needed a closer or a high leverage guy. He's been great. And then Lane Thomas, who we mentioned earlier, had some buzz last year. They opted to keep him. This year, probably not as much buzz, but it's almost kind of solidified who he is as a player. He matches lefties. He's not great against righties. He has a strong arm, but kind of sucks in the outfield. If the Nats kind of lower their asking price to a much more reasonable ballpark, a deal will get done. And I fully expect, granted, this is, venturing into our Nats talk that we'll do on our District Nats episode. I fully expect to see Dylan Cruz in August. James Wood just hit a game-winning home run today. Jacob Young's
sick.
playing phenomenally. in center field. Offense leaves plenty to be desired, but his defense and his base running are great. So, point being, they need to clear an outfield spot. Best way to do that without like hurting, the team's future or whatever, just creating a logjam, is to trade a guy. So I expect Lane Thomas to be gone. But again, they already traded Harvey. If they trade, Winker and Floro as they should, you might as well just trade whatever you can.
Yeah, and also it seems like contending teams are really strapped for corner outfield bats right now.
Yep.
So there's definitely a market for Lane that's
And
probably
it's
a little
not
bit boosted
great.
just because of that.
It's not great, but he could play center too. Like,
yeah,
he has the athleticism.
arguably he's a better center fielder than a right
Yeah.
fielder, so it's definitely something there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Nats definitely have pieces for sure.
Yeah. All right, the Reds, we kind of marked them as sellers. I think Frankie Montas is definitely gone. Anyone else? We both agree India stays. For whatever that's
the
worth.
only one that really makes sense is Montas. He's on a 1-year deal. They signed him with the intention of probably moving him, so he should get traded. He's been pretty solid for them.
Yeah, agreed. Cubs, this is a really interesting one because it's like, how far do they go? First of all, do they sell at all? But like, how far do they sell? What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I mean, they don't have much to sell. We listed
Right.
Hector Neris, who obviously every team is looking for bullpen help.
Yeah, and he has closing experience. Like,
Yeah,
if
he's
a
had
team
good,
will want him.
He had good playoff moments for the Astros as well, so teams will remember that. And then it's Bellinger, and it's just kind of like, what do you do? Because he's got a weird contract. I'm pretty sure it's an opt-out after this year with 2 more years after. He's not playing poorly. He's been solid, but he's probably not playing good enough to where he's going to opt out. Like,
Yeah.
he is kind of on the fence of like, will he opt in, will he opt out with his performance. So the Cubs obviously will probably have a better idea of what he wants to do. So if he is a 100% going to opt out after this, maybe you go ahead and trade him. But if he's going to stay opted in, then you don't move him. You probably just keep him, and then either you probably keep him in hope that he has a year like last year, and then you trade him. But I'm assuming that he's probably going to opt into that deal, considering where his performance is right now.
Yeah. I would agree. I have a really fun call prediction. Imagine Cody Bellinger reunion with the Dodgers.
That'd be a little awkward.
They kind of need outfield help.
Yeah, they definitely do. Again, another team that needs corner outfield help.
They're not going to care about the contract.
Yeah, definitely not.
It's nothing to them. So.
That would be crazy.
Just food for thought. Speaking of NOS Giants, we kind of talked about that and their kind of lack of pieces to really move that would move the needle. If they sell at all, do you think they sell?
Yeah, I want to talk Yastrzemski real quick because he has a year and a half of control, but he's also 33. So I don't know if they're really caring about that other year of control, really. He's been solid. And like I said, again, teams need outfielders right now. He's a piece to watch out for, just to see if teams are interested in picking him up for a playoff run.
Yeah, agreed. Moving on to the Pirates, we didn't list initially because they were over 500, and our qualification for this kind of discussion was teams under 500. But you and I both just said we think the Pirates sell. Is there anyone off the top of your head that really jumps out at you as like a person they could sell? Because to me, I think Martin Perez is one, but beyond that, I don't think they trade McCutchen.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, it seems like they'll do the Kershaw thing with the Dodgers where it's like 1-year deals until he retires.
Yeah, and I think you're right with McCutchen. Chapman probably gets moved. He's lefty with stuff. He's probably gonna have a suitor at the deadline regardless. His numbers are okay, but no team is even caring what the numbers say. He can still
103.
He can still throw 103. That's what they care about. And then maybe Marco Gonzalez. He just came off the injured list. Depth starter.
I forgot about him.
potentially as a guy that could eat innings for a team. But yeah, that's like a very low key piece.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's move on to the AL, and I'm actually going to go reverse and start at the top and work our way down because I think the most interesting conversation surrounds the White Sox. So we'll start at the top. The Rays, we kind of just talked about it. Like they might sell, but I don't think it's going to be as much as people think. So we'll go to the Tigers, who are 2 games under 500 right now. I mentioned Flaherty earlier. I think that's the big one. Is there anyone else that jumps out to you as a person that could be moved?
No, I really think Flaherty is kind of the only big name that they should consider moving. Because we think that I'm sticking by this. I really think that they are going to be good next year if they attack free agency properly and all that. Obviously, so the core that they have, besides obviously Torkelson underperforming, seems like a pretty solid group. Flaherty on a 1-year deal is one of the better pitchers on the market, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to have a pretty good offer considering what his stuff specifically has looked like this year. He's been a strikeout machine.
Especially if Crochet and Screwball don't get moved, that really
definitely, because Flaherty is Crochet is probably obviously the guy on the market right now, but Flaherty is probably right behind him in terms of skill and talent level. So
in terms of this year, impact
this
year.
season, absolutely.
Yeah.
So he's gonna get some good offers, and that's probably the only main piece that they're gonna sell.
Yep, agreed. The Rangers, we talked about earlier. I'm fully in the boat that Lorenzen and Yates get moved. You mentioned an interesting one earlier before we started recording. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, Nate Eovaldi. He has a vesting option, and it seems like he probably won't reach that vesting option. It's a 300 innings limit, or he needed to get 300 innings in 2023 and 2024 combined. If he made every start, he might get there, but odds are he probably won't. So the Rangers probably are looking at him as an expiring contract this year, and if that's the case, they should probably trade him because he's had a really good year. He's once again having a good season, and I mean, come on, we know what he's like in the playoffs. So
yeah, exactly.
His value is going to be higher just for that, but also he's had a good year. So again, I think he has a chance to get moved if they do get aggressive selling at the deadline.
All right, I have another fun one.
Ooh,
you ready
okay.
for this?
All right.
Nate Eovaldi to the Orioles.
That's sick. Because the Orioles,
a team that could use another flamethrower. They have good pitching, but they could use another one. And they want a guy with playoff experience. And there's arguably no one better than Eovaldi.
Yeah, that would be a great fit because the Orioles, pretty much all the Orioles need is another starter.
Just one more.
Pretty much, yeah. I feel like
Burns locked and loaded. Grayson Rodriguez has been great. Mm-hmm. They just need one more
to have that 3-headed monster. Yeah, so that could be an interesting choice. Watch out for him at the deadline. I really do think he gets moved if the Rangers do go into sell mode.
Yep, that's a good call. All right, Blue Jays we talked about earlier. Jansen, Kikuchi, kind of seem like they're gone. Maybe Bassett. Anyone else worth mentioning?
Nope. Bassett was the only other guy that has a chance, but even then, I don't really think teams are going to make a move
contract,
for him.
age, kind of iffy. All right, moving on to the Angels. This one, low key, they sneaky have a couple of guys that if they want to trade them all, I think it'd be smart considering how big of a miss last year's deadline was for them, buying inexplicably. Granted, at the time I said I loved it.
It was fun.
Just because I like teams going for it. Sue me. They have a couple of guys. Carlos Estevez, I think, can get moved. Tyler Anderson, who's having a career year and is out of nowhere. I think he needs to get moved if you're the Angels. Brandon Drury is another one. I think the Angels kind of hold a lot of pieces at this year's deadline, but who knows? Maybe they buy again.
You never really can tell with them, huh? Anderson's very interesting because he's had a fantastic year, but the underlying statistics don't love him. Yet, there's certain parts of his season this year that are very similar to his season as a Dodger, where he kind of had that breakout first All-Star season, not allowing a ton of base runners. And not allowing a ton of hits. The thing about Anderson that's always going to hurt him is that he doesn't strike anybody out. So it's just how do teams view his value is kind of what I'm saying, because like the ERA and the innings are great, but teams obviously, when they're trying to predict, they might not be looking at that. But I still think he does have some good value, just because even if he doesn't perform at this level for a team, he can still be a depth starter. He can still eat some innings for you. He can give you a long relieving option in the bullpen for the playoffs. So he will have value regardless. Just depends on how much.
Yep, agreed. All right, the next two are very clear as day sellers. Let's just preface with that. It's interesting, though, nonetheless, because they have pieces, both the A's and White Sox respectively, that in theory could be parts of their next good teams. In theory. The timelines may not match up, but they're really good players now. It's just how long are the respective teams going to hold on to them, or are they going to hold on to them at all? So starting with the A's, Brent Rooker is having a hell of a year.
Yeah. You can say that again.
No one's talking about. The A's, even though the record is not great, if they get some pitching, and I don't know what their farm system looks like in terms of arms, if they get some pitching, this is a team that, like, I'm not going to say they're going to be in the playoffs like next year or the next 2 years, but they could be like the Tigers, where they're just constantly hovering around 500. I kind of see what they're doing. Granted, the A's, it's hard to really justify a lot of what they do. That being said, I can't see them trading Brent Rooker or Mason Miller for that matter. They both have too much control. They're both key parts to that team. I just can't see it happening.
See, with any other team that operates normally, I would agree. 100%. Even now, Miller, just don't. A's, just keep him. Don't be stupid.
Yeah.
Rooker is. I wouldn't trade him, obviously, if it was my choice. But if your outlook on Rooker is we want to eventually maximize his value and get whatever we can for him,
so arguably not higher or won't ever be higher than
probably
it is now.
not a time where it's been higher than it is right now. He's got 3.5 years of control, and he has like a 170 WRC plus or something.
OPS is like above 900.
He's like a top 10 hitter in baseball.
In a year where the MLB average is like below 700.
Yeah, absolutely. And he also is streaky as hell. So, I mean, he gets hot down the stretch for your team. He can make the playoffs for you.
Yeah, he has an outside shot at 40 home runs this year.
I mean, crazy. And that's playing in the Coliseum. So he has immense value, but at the same time, he has so much control, I wouldn't do it. But I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to move him and try and get a huge haul in return and try and do it that way, just because that seems to be how they operate. But I hope they don't.
Yeah. I can. They need to do something, but like their two biggest pieces, I'm telling them not to. So it's kind of like backwards, but.
Yeah, well, again, if they operated normally and signed free agents, then you would sign some free agents to help out with this young group. There's guys here that are good. Rooker's one, but JJ Bleday is another guy who's been really good for them this year. He could get traded, I guess, but again, I wouldn't do it.
Exactly.
With the amount of control, but you just never know with them.
Yeah. All right, the last team is the White Sox. We know they're going to sell. That much is clear. Fetty's gone. We'll start there. Fetty's gone. They need to trade him.
I would look at Fetty as a potential landing spot for the Cardinals or maybe the Diamondbacks if they can't get fully healthy.
Yeah, he has a year and a half of control, so he'll command a little bit.
Good signing, by the way. They're going to get good stuff for him. He's had a good year.
Yeah, KBO, Cy Young. Luis Robert would probably be the next one. It sort of seems like he's going to get moved at this point. I would say more yes than no. Probably like 70-30, yes, he's going to get moved. What do you think on Robert?
The thing is, if he was having the season from last year that he had this year, I think it would be a no-brainer. I think you'd move him because his value would be so high. And at this point where the White Sox are, it does make sense to trade guys with multiple years of control because they're not going to be back to contending in
so
3 years.
bad.
They're going to need 5 to 7 years.
Yep.
So again, I think it just depends on the offer. If you get a team to jump and overpay for Robert because they think they can get that form from last year out of him, which, by the way, he's been hitting a lot better as of recent.
Yeah, since he's gotten back from injury, he's been great.
Yeah, so it's going to depend on the offer because he has 2.5 years of control. If a team gets aggressive, then I would think that the White Sox do move him. Same with Crochet. It's kind of a similar idea with him, but I think he's probably even more sought after because of just starting pitchers being such a big deal for the playoffs. So they'll probably get a good enough offer for him to move him.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with Crochet. He's by far and away the best arm available. It's not like he's on a middling team. Like, it's not like he's on the, Blue Jays or Angels where it's like they're struggling this year, but you see, maybe not the Angels, but you see the path back to contention.
Yeah, he happens to be on one of the worst teams ever.
Ever. Right. So like you talked about, like, it makes sense for them to trade him, and like he's a former reliever, so he's going to be, at some point this season you're going to need to think about his innings limit, and that's tough. But anyways, like you're going to need to maximize his deal and just let some other team, worry about that.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think he gets moved. I just don't know who ponies up for them. Like it sounds so funny, but they have the means to do it. The Padres sort of like make a lot of sense. I know they just traded for Dylan Cease.
Hey, they love to trade with the White Sox.
Yeah, but it sort of makes sense for them. Certainly the Dodgers could do it. Certainly the Orioles could do it if they really wanted to. The Orioles are interesting.
The Orioles can do whatever the hell they want because they have so many great prospects.
Interesting. It's just like, they're at the point where they can start selling off the farm, but it's
still be okay. That's the thing.
How? Like, I saw some Jackson Holiday for Targ Schoolball talk, and I'm like, "Ooh, that's spicy! I love that. I love that." So, yeah, I think the White Sox get an offer for Crochet they can't refuse. I just don't know who does it. I don't have a prediction in that regard, but I do think Crochet gets moved.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there. The White Sox have to try to replenish their farm. They have to. Yeah. So this is the way to do it.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, this has already been a longer episode, but it's a great episode. Trade deadline talk is always my favorite. To wrap it up, we're just going to go through the contenders now. One thing, if they make one trade, what should it be? We'll start with the AL, starting with the Orioles. One trade, what should they be?
Starting pitcher. Any starting pitcher, like a good starting pitcher. Yeah.
Bona fide starting pitcher. Nate Eovaldi, I think it makes a lot of sense.
If it's not like
if it's not a Crochet or someone to that level.
I mean, Crochet would be that would automatically make them the favorites. They have the prospects. Kobe Mayo is a guy they have. I don't know if they want to deal him, but like Kobe Mayo, if they go for
I don't know how you pronounce his last name.
Kerstad, yeah, he's been good.
Kerstad,
and then they've got Samuel Basalo, who hasn't even come up yet. He's really good. So they got guys they can,
and he's blocked because he's a catcher.
Exactly. Look for. It would make sense for them to be aggressive on a starter this time.
Yep. Guardians, if they make one trade, what should it be?
For the Guardians, I had two, but if I had to pick one, I'll go starting pitcher because their offense has been pretty damn good. And I had corner outfield listed because they haven't quite gotten a lot from their outfield, but like it also hasn't been terrible. They have some prospects that might be good for their outfield, so I'll go starting pitcher because they don't even have Shane Bieber. I feel like he was hurt so early in the year. He was supposed to be a big part of that, so I'll go starting pitcher for that. Pretty much everybody needs a starter, but like again, like a top of the line starter that can be a solid 2 or 3.
Yeah, for me, I actually did the other thing. I think they should get like. Again, maybe the pitching market is just so much more plentiful that they prefer to that, but I think they need another bat.
Mm-hmm.
Not because they need it, like the numbers say they need it, but more so they just need a guy. They have Jose Ramirez, certainly, and they have guys that are having great seasons like Stephen Kwan, David Fry, but they need a guy, and obviously those are few and far between. And I don't know how strict the White Sox are, but like a Luis Robert, that would be cool for the Guardians. Just like
I know you'd love to see one of those like mid-tier like payroll teams get aggressive here and try and like make something happen for trades. So that would be sweet.
Try to surround Ramirez, but yeah. All right, the Astros. What are they? One trade.
Astros one trade. Probably, honestly, I'm gonna go. Starter obviously, but I'm gonna go reliever. I think they still need bullpen help. It hasn't been pretty this year.
Hader has not been great.
Still hasn't been great. Abreu's kind of gotten it going, but none of them have been elite to where they need to be. I think they need to go get another bullpen piece. That could honestly be in a Aroldis Chapman. I could totally see Chapman joining the Astros. They've got they know how to develop guys with high velocity. Obviously, he doesn't really need development, but they can help him. Find that consistency like what happened last year when he got traded to the Rangers. So look for them to be getting a bullpen arm, a really solid one.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. And that takes me to the Yankees, which I also think they need a bullpen arm. And I also think not as fun, but more fun because we're Nats fans. Kyle Finnegan makes a lot of sense. Kyle Finnegan and possibly Lane Thomas. I mean, I know two of their outfield spots are already spoken for, and very much so in a good way, like with Judge and Soto. But I would say Kyle Finnegan really helps solidify that bullpen.
For me, I think the most important thing is a top-of-the-order bat for the Yankees. Ben Rice has done well in that one spot.
Lane Thomas.
Hey, there could be one. I was thinking a Jazz Chisholm or a Jonathan India if they do get aggressive. Unfortunately for the Yankees and their fans, they tend to prospect hug a little too hard. So they gotta break out of that and start making something happen. Because again, this is a team that has a lot of really good pieces, and they had a great start to the season. But the lack of depth in their offense has hurt. They've got two of the best hitters on the planet, and then almost nothing else. I think a guy to put in that leadoff spot right in front of them is a perfect thing for them to be looking to do.
Yep. Twins. Anything?
I'm not sure
where they can improve. I think they need to improve. That's kind of a cop-out answer, but I don't even know if they buy, but they need to improve their team.
Yeah, they should probably get a starter. Because that's been their weakest point. Their offense has been pretty damn good. I don't really think they need a ton there. Bullpen is solid. So yeah, probably a starter if they can get one. But I'm not. Even if they do, I don't think they'll go for an ace starter. They'll probably go for a depth starter and just try to ride it out because they'll probably still make the playoffs.
Yeah. All right. The Royals. They already had a reliever. What else?
I think. I really like this team, honestly. If they can get all their guys going, because they're pretty balanced overall. The starters have been. I mean, maybe a starter, just because Raggins hasn't quite been the ace everyone thought. He's been good, but like he hasn't been like the number one. So I don't know. Maybe you go and get a starter, but probably just like a couple depth bats to help out the offense a little bit. I don't see them. Because they don't have much in their farm. I can't see them making a huge splash move, but just some extra depth potential, like, I don't know, maybe, again, like a Lane Thomas or something like that, like an outfield bat. But I actually really like where they're at right now.
Yep. Red Sox, what do you think?
Probably, again, they need a first baseman. Casas being injured kind of ruined their plans there. They have Dom Smith playing there. He's doing Dom Smith things, so not that great. So probably a corner bat for them as well. Their pitching's been really good, definitely overperformed.
Yeah, it has.
They've found something there with their pitching development. Bullpen's been solid, so probably some more offense there.
Yeah, I would just say a power bat. And speaking of power bats, the Mariners, whatever bats are available, need to
literally
go to Seattle
any bat you can
immediately.
get.
Immediately.
Again, Luis
Phillies,
Roberts, another play there as well.
Yeah, 100%. Phillies, kind of an interesting one. I don't know that they need a ton, but it kind of seems silly for them to not do anything.
Yeah, that's
so
exactly
I'm just
what I
gonna,
was thinking.
reliever. I'll just cop out.
Bullpen, maybe a depth starter to fill in the fifth spot.
Yeah.
And where their contract situation is with Castellanos kind of makes this a moot point. But I was saying another corner outfield bat. That's kind of their weakest spot is him. But they're not. He's on a huge contract for 3 more years, so I can't see them making any change there.
All right, next team we've got the Dodgers. It seems silly considering they're like 1 run back of the most runs in the National League. I would say another bat, probably an outfielder, as I mentioned earlier, and kind of joked with the Cody Bellinger thing. It seems like they could use another bat until, just keep them afloat till Mookie gets back. Because even though they have a plus 92 run differential, it sounds so silly. Like, they're just not as intimidating as other Dodger teams that we've seen recently.
Well, they went on a stretch too where they were like 500 for like 2 months almost. So it's like, they're not perfect here. So they definitely need some help. I probably would have agreed with you until Yamamoto got hurt, and now I think they need a starter most of all. But I do agree. I think another bat is something that they would look at, and they'll probably get both of them because of the Dodgers, and that's what they do.
Yeah. Glass now is coming back from injury. Yep. Kershaw's making his first start of the year, so we'll see. But there might not be enough time. They might err on the side of caution and get another arm anyways. The Brewers, another interesting team that's...
Pitching.
Pitching. Much better, but yeah.
I actually was...
They're in the Twins territory. They need to prove their team however they can.
I tell you what, I was looking at their pitching stats, and it's kind of... I'm just kind of mind blown that they've managed to put this together and be this good with this pitching staff. I mean, they've used so many pitchers, and they have used them in all different ways. But they don't have a guy at the top of that rotation who can shut it down. They had him. His name is Corbin Burns. Obviously, they moved him, which we kind of all agree that made sense at the time. But they need... I mean, Freddie Peralta is good, but he hasn't been the ace that they were hoping that he would be. They need another guy at the top of that rotation if they want to go for it. Now, I'm not sure how much they want to go for it. I think that they might be content just getting in, because considering the expectations. But they definitely, if they want to go for it, they need pitching help big time. Offense has been great, so pretty good on that front, but pitching help big time.
Yeah, the wild card teams in the NL, pretty straightforward. Braves need offense, probably outfield, maybe a second baseman to keep them afloat while Ozzie Albies is out. Cardinals pitching, either starting or relieving. Yep. The Mets we don't really consider buyers, but you never know. The Diamondbacks pitching, either starting or relieving, probably the starting kind. And then the Padres, same thing. Pitching, either starting or the relieving kind. Do you disagree anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, if the Mets were going to buy, I'd say that they would also need starting pitching. That would be the only thing. It's again, seems like, especially in the National League, in the middle of that pack, there's been a lot of pitching injuries, and teams are just like kind of 1 or 2 pitchers short of where they thought they'd be at this point in the year. So everyone kind of needs it.
Yep, 100%. So this will be the last episode that comes out before the deadline. I think a fun way, I've been kind of sprinkling them throughout. Who's the biggest name that gets traded at the deadline, and where does he go?
I think the biggest name that gets moved is Garrett Crochet. And I would absolutely love to see him on the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense for them to do that.
Yeah, that's the easy one. But it's also the one that makes the most sense.
I mean, the Dodgers obviously they're in play for him, but that's boring. So let's go to the Orioles.
Yeah, no, it makes
honestly
sense.
Any move with him is going to be big time. So, but yeah, I think he gets moved.
Yeah. All right, so that one makes a lot of sense. I'll pivot and go to his teammate Luis Robert. Gets traded, and he gets traded to the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Boring. Boo.
I know.
But because they need outfield help. It makes sense.
Yeah.
They love to make the big splash.
Yeah.
It would fit. It would fit for sure.
They're clearly going for it. Not that the Dodgers ever aren't.
Exactly.
But they want to put the Mickey Mouse, allegations to rest
once and for
they,
all.
They want to win. Yeah, they want to win a real
Yeah.
one. So, yeah, they're gonna do whatever needs to be done. And I think Luis Robert, especially if they miss out on Crochet, like let's say the Orioles outbid them, they're gonna pivot and just get Robert with the kind of similar framework of whatever deal they were trying to get Crochet. I mean, shit, they might trade both. Like, let's be real.
They want at least one big move, so that makes sense.
Yeah. All right, that does it for this episode. Again, a little bit of a longer episode, but we wanted to make sure to cover everything. But in the meantime, right, there's going to be a lot more to be covered as we approach the trade deadline next week. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at DistrictBSB and subscribe to us on YouTube at District Baseball. Make sure you hit the bell to get all of the latest videos, shorts, full episode clips, and everything in between. Follow us on TikTok at District Baseball. Trey and not on TikTok, on Twitter. Trey at Reverse2R2S is myself and the Coach Moose. We appreciate you listening. And in the meantime, let's go baseball.
Peace.